morning, ICCA delegates. You can do better than that. Good morning, ICCA delegates. Welcome to the city of big dreams. Of course, the 57th annual ICCA Congress. It is wonderful to see so many of you here this morning. My name is Tina Altieri. Now, tell me, when you went to sleep last night, overflowing with excitement, brimming with anticipation about what the ICCA Congress might hold for you. Actually, let me just ask you, hang on a sec. Let me just check with you. Last night, when you fell asleep, you were overflowing with excitement and brimming with anticipation, were you not? That was lovely, 2 of you. What about the rest of you? Were you overflowing with excitement and brimming with anticipation? Yes. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because when you fell asleep last night feeling like that, did you dream what might come out of this Congress for you? In other words, did you think about the experiences that you might have in the next 3 days? Did you anticipate the opportunities that might come about, the possibilities that might come forward for you, the connections you might make, the people you might meet? In fact, when was the last time you even designed a dream, spoke to your family and friends about it? In this fast-paced, high-tech world, do we even talk about dreams anymore? It's really interesting, but the Global Word Frequency Index tells us that we don't talk about dreams as much as we used to. Would you believe that in 2018, the word dreams dropped significantly in terms of our vocabulary and how often we brought it up? Do you want to take a guess at the 2 words that superseded the word dream in 2018? And I'll give you a clue. They are the 2 D words. Want to take a guess? Doom? Close. Disruption? Let me show you. Digital and disruption overtook the word dream in 2018. Take a look at these figures. Digital and disruption talked a whole lot more about, and guess what? The word dream took a dive in 2018. So I ask you, when did you and I stop dreaming? When Dubai set out to become something pretty special from this very sleepy, dusty fishing village just under 40 years ago, it knew exactly where it wanted to be. And in fact, it made its dreams so super clear. Leaders in Dubai told the world that indeed we will never settle for anything less than first place. They also said that the race for excellence has no finish line. And we know now that they absolutely meant it, because nothing prepares you for the scale of Dubai, does it? Nothing prepares you for the sheer bravado of this incredible city. And as they say, you have to have a dream in order for your dream to become a reality. So let me ask you, what is the one thing you would dare to dream if in fact you knew you couldn't fail? Think of the career dreams that you might just have let go of. Think of the company dreams, if indeed that is your great passion. Think of those family dreams that you, tend not to talk about in the family so often anymore, because I know everyone's so busy playing Fortnite. Have a think about those big, bold, audacious, courageous dreams. What would you dare to dream? In about 30 seconds from now, I'm going to ask you to stand, and you're going to turn your body to a slightly different direction, and you're going to lock eyes with someone you have never met before. You're going to introduce yourself, and you're going to have a conversation around this particular question. What is the one thing I would dare to dream if I knew I could not fail? And where does that dream come from? preferably someone you've never met before, or maybe someone you've never spoke to in about a week. That would be fine too. What would you dare to dream? And for all of this deep and meaningful conversation that you are about to have, you're going to be very open and transparent, a real heart-to-heart. I'm going to give you a whole 90 seconds. All right? This is deep and meaningful. Are you ready, ICCA delegates? Yes? Please be on your feet. Be on your feet and let's get ready to dream.
Dream, 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 dream when I want you in my arms, when I want you, and all your charms whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream, 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 dream when I feel blue in the night and I need you to hold me tight whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream. I can make you mine, taste your lips of wine anytime, night or day. Only trouble.
Very good. There are lots of big dreams going on. Let the dreaming continue for the last few seconds. Let the dreaming continue for the last few seconds. Then take your seats. This is very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. There must be some pretty funny dreams out there because there's a lot of people doubling over with belly laughs. What is the one thing you would dare to dream? I can't wait to hear some of your responses. And it's wonderful that you've now met a brand new friend at the ICCA Congress. But guess what else you have done, ladies and gentlemen? In the last 2 minutes, you're going to love this. In the last 2 minutes, you have helped us raise the word dream in the Global Word Frequency Index. Would you give yourselves a big round of applause? We have pushed dreams up the ladder. In the last 90 seconds, we have done it. I was determined to get that done. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning's guests on stage speak on and live their dreams against this beautiful backdrop of what they really aspire to do. They will spark your imagination, not just your intellect, on the power of dreams, the physiology of dreams, following them through, how to take a good, hard look at your dreams in order for them to become a reality. They will challenge us to change our mindset, change our filter in order to make sense of this great transformation that we're currently going through. Our very first speaker, ladies and gentlemen, has an incredible insight into the wonderful world of your brain. His decades of experience and research in the area of science involves mainly the biology of the brain and how it relates to the development of neuroscience, change, creativity, and emotions. Ladies and gentlemen, please hang on to your big hat of dreams and give a warm ICCA welcome to Stanislaw Bachrach. Well done.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Tina. So in order to dream big, we have to be more creative. But could anyone be more creative? Or is something that you have to born with it? It is a talent or it is a skill? So today, 2018, we are clear that we are in the century of creativity. We are in the century of empathy, the century of change and adaptation to change. And of course, logic is very important, but it's not enough. In order to make a difference as an organization, as a country, as a person, as a human being, you have to be more creative. Logic is not enough. And I'm not saying that. In fact, 1,500 CEOs and leaders around the world, they truly believe that creativity is the skill. You need to be more creative in order to lead the future. And I will say, in order to lead the present, because creativity is right now. So let's start defining creativity, because there are so many definitions of what is to be creative. For this talk, in order to be creative, you need two things. You need to have an idea that is new, and that idea has to add value or create value to someone. So, novelty and create value. Creativity is in our brains, and if you can transform that idea into a product, into experience, into a process, you become innovative. So in biology, we say that creative are people, but organizations, countries are innovative. But it's quite similar, quite the same. So it is a talent or it is a skill? Who can be more creative? What about both? In fact, for biologists, creativity is a talent. Yes, some people, they were born with that. They are creative. We don't know how. In fact, talent, the definition of talent for biologists is what science cannot explain. We cannot explain why people are talented. But most of us, we are not very creative. And the question is, could we improve our creativity? Even now that we are older, it's something that you have to create when you are a child, or you can improve your creativity when you are older. So I like to think brains, before you go to school, as a glass of water, because kids' thoughts are very clear, inclusive, fluent. This is why kids are spontaneously creative. And then something very bad happened to your life. You go to school, and water gets frozen. Because if I have to define school, I will define it in 3 words. In school, you learn to define, to label, and to separate. So this glass of water becomes ice cubes. Your brain has a lot of ice cubes. And each ice cube represents a category: marketing, history, geography, computers, animals, vegetables. And that's not bad. This is why we are so efficient as human beings. Because we start to create dominant thought patterns. Each time that we open our mouth, each time that we talk, each time that we try to answer for a question, we talk about our experience, our certainties, our culture. That's not bad. That makes us very efficient. But the big challenge is those 3 words are the enemies of creativity. This is why it's so difficult to be creative, because we have to break those patterns. We have to talk, and we have to try to think something that is new and certain. Sometimes we have to say something totally different from our culture, something that we don't know if it will work. This is being creative. So some scholars, they have dedicated all their lives trying to understand creative, talented people. There are a lot of talented people that have this talent of creativity. And some scholars dedicated all their life in trying to understand those guys, that they changed our world. And they found that they have some similarities, trying to find a perfect recipe that never work, but people that they are very, very creative, they have some similarities. For example, instead of having point of view, they have views of the point. And now research have shown us that if the more you have multiplicity of perspective, the more creative you are. This is why when you get into an organization and you try to understand creative teams, they have people from very different backgrounds, because multiplicity of perspectives get you closer to being creative. Then they have found that these talented creative people, they have dedicated a lot of their time in trying to know themselves. The more self-awareness, the more creative you are. Now, there are a lot of papers and science showing us this. If you know yourself better, you are more creative. Another thing is creative people, they work with a lot of energy. Imagine Picasso painting, a lot of energy. Of course, sometimes they are very calm. Maybe they are incubating those ideas. Then they have found that they work a lot. Sometimes we think about very creative people in the sofa thinking, no, they work several hours, they work a lot. So those guys that they are very creative, they work a lot, what we have to do, us, working more. Imagine Messi, I'm from Argentina. Messi is a very talented guy, but he works a lot. He trained every day since he was a child. Then they have found that creative people, they combine playing with discipline. Another very common thing is to think creative people playing all the time. Of course they play, because playing connects you with your creativity, but you have to have a lot of discipline, hours working. And finally, for me the most important thing is they want to be more creative. Intention. They want to be more creative. They want to change their industry. They want to change their culture. And of course, it's common sense. If you like to do something, if you want to do something, your brain will behave differently. Now it's not only common sense, now it's science. The more you want something, the more closer to get to that. So what about us? We are not talented, maybe. We don't have this talent of being creative. But we have the skill. And this is very, very big dream. No matter what age you are, you can improve your creativity. There are 30 to 40 years of experience, science experience, showing us that wherever you are, if you want, you can be more creative. Of course, you have to train. It's like tennis, it's like chess, it's like cooking, it's a skill. You have to train in order to get better. So I have 20 years of experience trying to improve creativity in different organizations in Latin America. And because I don't have a lot of time, let me give you a very small example how people don't do very well brainstormings. Brainstorming is maybe the most sexy part of creativity, having ideas or crazy ideas. Let's meet together for an hour and try to have 100 ideas. So a big mistake is when you get into a brainstorming session, most of the time, people, they want to get the idea. Let's have a great idea in this brainstorming session. They have a great idea, a different idea, an idea that has to be new, has to create value. People want to buy it, pay for that, and that's very difficult. It's very difficult to be creative, to have an idea that everyone will love it, and it will be new, and it will create value. So don't waste your time during your brainstorming trying to have the idea. The most important thing during a brainstorming is to having new ideas. Don't try to add value yet. Don't try to create value. Just force yourself, push yourself in having new ideas. Novelty is the only characteristic that we're trying to get into a brainstorming. Novelty. And then, of course, as you can read here, you combine that with quantity. Don't get 10 new ideas, get 200 new ideas, 500 new ideas. In our sessions, 1,000 new ideas. Don't try to get the idea, try to get a lot of new ideas. And I assure you that if you have 500 new ideas, one of those, it will be a great one. So combine quantity with novelty, and then you do math. The more quantity you have, the more chances of having a good one, a very good one. And always we find one. Of course, then some scholars, some scientists, they try to understand normal people trying to improve our creativity, and there are some very magical words. For example, curiosity. In school, again, school, School, the enemy of creativity. In school, they taught us to answer questions, but they don't teach us to ask questions. So a very nice exercise when you want to be more creative is don't try to find an answer, try to find 50 questions. You have a challenge, don't go for the answer, don't go for the solution, go for more questions. And this is true. When I say 50, it's a true exercise. Get 1 week and try to think 50 different questions about your challenge. And you will see that in question number 37, wow, that's creative. You will find something. Observation. Try to become an anthropologist of your challenge. See beyond what is obvious. It's not easy, but there are some techniques, some methods in order to improve your observation, observing your client, observing your culture, observing your experience, your process. That will push you, that will improve your creativity. Maybe the mother of all the techniques is conceptual blending. Try to combine, trying to connect things that apparently they are not connected. In biology, we say nothing is new. What is new is the combination of older things, or things that already exist. When you dare to connect things that apparently they don't have connections, and you do that 100 times, 200 times, 500 times, you will find a connection that you will say, wow, that's creative. So association is a very important word. Networking, most of us, we are used to talk every day with the same people. Our life, we are surrounded by the same people. So try to get further. Try to connect, to talk with people that are very different from you. For example, this is a good example, this meeting here. People that they think different from you, a different culture, a different industry, a different background. Maybe they have some ideas for you, or they can push you, motivate you to have new ideas. Networking is a very important word. And of course, try it. If you don't try it, you will never know if it works. People have ideas and they're very excited, that's great, but then they are afraid of trying. What happens if they fail? Nothing. But we have learned in school that failing is bad. But failing is very good. If you don't fail, you never learn. So I can give a talk about school, apparently. So what biologists we believe is that if you want to improve whatever you want in your life, no matter what age you are, you have first to believe that you can. Believe is the most important verb in biology. Do you believe you can be more creative? No, don't try it. You have to believe it. Again, why some of us believe in ourselves and some not? School and parents. Parents are the enemies of belief. Once you believe in yourself, you have to want it. Again, if you don't want to be more creative, why try it? You don't want it. And then you have to practice. How much? I don't know. No one knows. A lot. But why I have to practice 10 hours and she or he is practicing 5 hours and she's getting better than myself? Because you are different. You are not worst. You are different. We are all different. But you have to practice a lot. So we can do it, but most of the time we can't because we are inhibited. We believe we can't. We believe we cannot be more creative. So there's this inhibition is totally mental. It's what you believe about yourself. It's not your brain. It's not that you are not capable of. It's what you believe or they told you you can, you can't. But once you can inhibit yourself, and there are a lot of techniques to do that, you have to go for a lot of possibilities. Novelty and quantity. And 100% I can assure you that you will find a great idea, a novel idea, a creative idea. So you can dream big because Creativity is not a talent. It's not just a talent. It's a skill, and you can improve it. You have to believe in yourself, you have to want it, and you have to practice a lot. I hope you enjoy that. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Perfect. Well done. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Tina.
much, Estani. Ladies and gentlemen, Estani Bakrak. Absolutely wonderful. Estani, we cannot wait for your session at 2 o'clock today, talking about priming your brain for change. Absolutely wonderful. 2 o'clock today, ladies and gentlemen, and you can catch Estani in action. Now, a word of warning about dreams and our next guest speaker. If you have a chance to speak to, a little later on, Alia Al-Mansouri, just do me a favour. Don't talk to her about small dreams. It's not that she doesn't like small dreams, it's just that she doesn't really relate to small dreams. You know, she had incredible courage and determination to follow through on her monumental goal of sending and launching an experiment into outer space. She also plans to be the very first astronaut to set foot on the Martian planet. So, as you can gather, small dreams don't really, they're not on her radar. It's really the big dreams that she's more interested in. Now, that experiment that I was just telling you about is a study of proteins in DNA that can help astronauts to avoid cell damage during long stints in outer space. Her award-winning Genes in Space experiment blasted off from NASA's Kennedy Station a few months ago, taking with it not only Alia's dreams, but also those of many astronauts and scientists around the world to amazing heights. Sounds impressive, doesn't it? Yes? But here's what you don't know, perhaps, about Alia Al-Mansouri. She's just 16 years of age. Ladies and gentlemen, please give her a huge ICCA welcome. Alia Al-Mansouri. Lovely to see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. This might be a little intimidating audience since I'm just 16, but she said I got to do a lot of things, and they were all very, very exciting. And it all comes from a very small dream that I had ever since I was a kid. And so, as you can see in these pictures, I was just a little kid. I'm still a little kid. When I was around 4 or 5 years old, I would always go to my siblings and go to my parents, and I would tell them, I want to go to space. I need to go see my alien family. And they would tell me, no, Alia, you're from Earth. And I would say, no, please call my alien family. I need them right now. And so, sadly, my parents, who are sitting over there, they had to deal with that for around 5 years. And they had to convince me that I was a human. So one day I had to go to the doctor, and I think I had to get like an injection or something because I was sick. And so I went there, and he said, okay, you have this infection. And I said, that's funny, I don't get infections, I'm an alien. And he said, no, you're human. You have to get this injection. I said, no, take me back to my alien family. I'm allergic to Earth. And so it took me a while to realize that I'm human. But then I was really sad because I said, okay, I'm human, so now what? How do I go to space? I love space. I want to go to Mars. I want to see the stars, not from Earth. And so I saw a video of the International Space Station and astronauts aboard the International Space Station, how they would like float around and open a can of peanuts and do crazy stuff like open a water bottle. And it's crazy because it's in space. And so I wanted to try it. And I said, okay, my dream is to become an astronaut. And then I realized there's no space agency. I was around grade 7. And then there was no space agency. So I was like, okay, now what? And then a few years later, thankfully, they started a space agency here in the UAE. And my dream started to get bigger by the second. And so I created an experiment that studied a protein called heat shock proteins. These proteins are made by the body to protect us from environmental heat. And so, for example, if you go outside in Dubai, not particularly these past few days, but if you were to go outside in Dubai in the summer, for example, and it would be really hot, your body would make these proteins to protect you from the heat. And so, since these proteins protect us from the heat and environmental things that are dangerous for our bodies, I wanted to see whether they protect us from the environment in space that has a lot of radiation and microgravity. So I wanted to see that, and I wanted to see if we can study a different and new way where astronauts, if they don't have any past experiences in this type of biology, that they will be able to perform this experiment easily and in a short amount of time. And so I entered the competition with that experiment, and I won first place, which was awesome. And it was a Genes in Space competition. It was the first international competition to ever come to the UAE from NASA and Mini-PCR, the National, and Boeing. And afterwards, I was able to send my experiment to the International Space Station because of this experiment. And after that after I won that competition, my dad got a call. And it said, hey, we want to see Alia. Then he said, who is they? And I said, well, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the Crown Prince, wants to meet Alia. And I was excited, but I was also really scared because I look up a lot to our leaders. And I was like, okay, what should I do? What should I talk about? I even had like flashcards. I was looking through them. Okay, so we'll talk about my experiment. Then I'll talk about my age. Then I'll talk about space. And I was so scared and so nervous. But then I went there, and when I was talking to him, I forgot I even had flashcards. Because we were talking, and it was a conversation, and it was so much fun. I didn't even feel like I was talking to the Crown Prince. He was so down to earth and so humble that he even invited me to a lot of more things, which was crazy. So it was cool. And right now, I would love to say he's my friend, but he's also a great inspiration for me. And I look up to him a lot because he's the true meaning of a leader. And to me, a true meaning of a leader is someone who is humble, trustworthy, and someone who everyone loves and loves to work with. And I'm sure that if anyone gets the chance to meet him, they'll say the same, because his humbleness and down to earth really brings you close to his heart and gives you some type of warmth that really no one else can give other than your father. And so it was an amazing experience. And then come the great part. I got to go to Kennedy Space Center in NASA, and I got to watch my experiment launch to the International Space Station. Now, I'll tell you a little anecdote that happened while I was in the US. My entire experiment was prepared at Harvard University with my mentor, who at the time was studying her PhD. And so I was doing my experiment, and when we were done, we were packing it up and going to FedEx, which was just across the lab. And so we went there, and we gave them the box, and we said, okay, so can you please put some dry ice labels so that it'll stay safe? And then he said, okay, it's dry ice, so please write where this is going specifically. So I said, okay, specifically, Florida, Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center, SpaceX launch pad, International Space Station, and then they said, okay, no, calm down. What are you, like 14? And I said, excuse me, no, I'm 15. I'm 15, I'm older, okay? And he said, it's still the same thing, okay? And then I said, no, I'm serious, this is going to space. And he saw that my mentor, who was doing her PhD at the time, like this woman went to Cambridge University, and then she did her master's at Harvard, and now she's doing her PhD, and he said, and she's 17, because she was my height. And then I said, what? Are you kidding me? She, what? And then he said, okay, look, I'll send this to Florida. I'll send it to Cape Canaveral, and it's a military area. I'll send it there, but if it comes back, it's not my problem. Your DNA will be melted. And I said, sure. And thankfully, it did reach because it was on that rocket. And so when it was on that rocket, I felt like my literal baby was going to space because I worked on that for an entire year and I was putting all of my time and effort. Literally, I would have, because I'm in high school, so I would have things to do for school. I would have projects, like science fair projects that I'd have to do. I had exams, different exams for Arabic, English. I lived my life like a normal high school student. I like to think of myself as like a biology superwoman because in the morning I'd go to school like any normal high school student. At night, I do biology. I do experiments, prepare my experimental design, talk to my mentor at Harvard, and just prepare everything. So it's like Superman, but not quite Superman, more biology. And so I'll show you now the launch of the experiment. So get ready. As you can, you'll hear it, how really scary it might sound, and it was because the ground was literally shaking at the launch pad, and it was awesome. So, oops, wait, sneak peek.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Lift off the Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is over tower. Shift out JC. Move to 39A to post operations.
Copy, we'll go.
Hi, Aaliyah. I'm astronaut Peggy Whitson on board the International Space Station. I wanted to let you know that I just finished performing the PCR on your sample. And I wanted to personally congratulate you for being the first international winner of the Genes in Space contest. I hope you're very proud of your accomplishment. I certainly am. I am especially thrilled about your interest in biosciences, since that interest is where my space journey also began. And I hope that you will continue your pursuit of the sciences in order to reach your goal of becoming an astronaut. We know that through the efforts and innovation of young people like you, our exploration of space will reach even more new and exciting heights. Congratulations again, Aaliyah. And let me freeze this sample so that you can get it back. Make sure you don't get any of the Randy in there. Alpha, tray alpha 3-4. All right, congratulations again, Aaliyah.
So yeah, that was pretty awesome. So the astronaut that you saw in that video was astronaut Peggy Whitson, and she's an American astronaut from NASA, and she did the same exact thing that I've always wanted to do, and that I've always seen growing up, with the International Space Station videos where they'd fly to the International Space Station. And just thinking of something that I literally had in my hands, in her hands, in space, aboard the International Space Station, was just an amazing feeling. it was awesome. And so thanks, astronaut Peggy Whitson, for doing my experiment. And it was a lot of fun. And I remember that same day, this video came to me in the morning. And I was going to school, and I was in the car, and I was looking at that video, and my mom is driving, and all of a sudden I'm like, Mom, and then she said, what are you doing? Mom, look, it's me, it's my experiment. And then she said, no, that's not you, that's literally another woman. And I said, no, that's my experiment, look at it. And then she said, whoa, and she almost parked, but we were in the middle of the road, so we had to continue to drive. And when I went to school, I remember showing all of my friends, because phones aren't allowed in school, so please don't tell my principal. I would pull out my phone, and I would show my friends. I would show them from like my pocket, and I'd be like, hey, look, this is my video. This is the International Space Station. And they'd say, oh my God, that's so cool, send it to me. And then everyone would look at it, and as soon as the teacher would walk past, I'd just turn it off and put it in my pocket and act like nothing happened. And I don't do that today, but it was an important news, and I had to show my friends because this is not just my experiment. The experiment that I sent is not just an experiment that is Ali al-Mansouri's experiment. That is incorrect because that experiment had a giant team that worked on it, and that team may not necessarily be the ones or the people that are actually involved in the experiment, but the people who have supported me. And in any experiment, a supporter should be counted as a contributor because a supporter motivates you. And so my parents are part of this experiment, my friends are part of this experiment, my teachers, leaders, you guys, everyone is part of this experiment. It's an experiment for humanity. It's not just my experiment. So this picture may be a little confusing, but it's basically the results for the experiment. I can't explain a lot, but basically these bands, they show us whether this experiment worked or not, you could say. So if no bands show, then it would be that this experiment didn't work. But since the bands did show, and they showed a certain concentration of DNA present, then that shows that the heat shock proteins actually did express in space, and that we can detect that heat shock proteins being made in space by our bodies. And this is a first step to a great new type of exploration, which is seeing whether our bodies can actually live and thrive in space rather than here on Earth, and seeing whether if we actually one day get to go to Mars, whether these astronauts can do their own experiments by themselves. Because today, most of our experiments are being done in space and then sent to Earth for analysis. But in the future, I want to change that. I want to make sure that astronauts can do their own experiments in space because we can't just keep relying on Earth, even though it's our home planet. We need to someday be able to reach Mars and do our own experiments and be completely independent because we can't send something from Mars and then back to Earth and then Mars and then back to Earth and then maybe to the moon and then back to Earth. It's too much. It's a lot of, we're already trying to convince people to put their money into sending humans to Mars rather than keep sending experiments back and forth. And so this was an amazing experience for me, of course, and for everyone around me, my parents. I hope they're proud, and it was just an awesome experience. And it got me closer to do something that I've always wanted to do. And as you can see here, I'm sitting with my mentor, who just recently graduated from her PhD at Harvard. And we were looking at a slideshow about Mars at NASA. And while I was looking at Mars, every time I see anything that is red or orange, or even blue or any other color, anytime I look at anything, it reminds me of Mars. I try to connect dots, think of different things, because Mars is really, for me, a really big dream. And I hope one day to be able to go there. And if not, I hope to inspire one day a person who will be able to go there. Because humanity shouldn't stop on Earth. We shouldn't be limited. We were born to create, we were born to expand and to discover the universe. So we should do that. Yeah, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please congratulate Aliyah, an awesome Emirati teenage sensation. I don't know about you, but don't you get the feeling that we will be reading and hearing much more about Aliyah in the future? And remember where you saw her first, right here at the 57th ICCA Congress. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so very, very much for joining us. You know, ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot of work being done currently around the science of dreams, the patterns of happy and sad dreams, and whether indeed these patterns actually influence our behaviour, whether we're inspired by them, so we reach for the extraordinary and do extraordinary things in real life, to really reach for the stars. That's what scientists are now trying to discover. But here's what a group of German researchers have recently found out. They believe they now know what big, great dreams look and sound like. They've discovered that when you have a big, audacious, courageous dream, it looks and sounds a very similar way. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to replicate what a big, bold, audacious, courageous dreams looks and sounds like, in the hope that maybe, just maybe, you in the audience might get a case of déjà vu. You might be able to identify with what this great big dream looks and sounds like. So firstly, this is what we need to do. We need to get the lighting right. So Marlene, can we reduce the lights? And it's been official that the lighting must be at the darkness level of 85.7. So can we get the lights down to 85.7? Right, here we go. That's it. Perfect. Perfect lighting for the big, bold dream. Now, the next thing you may or may not know is that a great big dream has a rhythm. And it goes a bit like this. Join me. That's good. Keep the rhythm going. And now, here comes the melody. And here are the dreams. Here they are. Have a look up above. These are the dreams. This is what big, bold, audacious dreams look and sound like. No edges, soft, round. Take your dreams, play with them for a couple of seconds. Get a feel for what the dreams are like. It's interesting, some people like to hit them out of the way very, very quickly. Can you bring those dreams back in? Thank you, sir. Thank you for bringing the dreams back to us. Some people like to really hit them out. Then there are some people who won't let go of dreams and hang on to them so tight. What do you do to your dreams? Those great, big dreams. You know, ladies and gentlemen, now that you've played and you know what these big, big dreams look and sound like, let me tell you a bit more about our next guest speaker. Our next guest speaker has been in search of the big E-dream for so long. Where is our E-dream? Let's have a look. Where is that E-dream? Can I have it over here? This is really important. Let me get this E-dream over here. I need this. Thank you so very much. I need this really, really specifically. That's it. You can take your dreams. You want to get rid of your dreams? That's right. Let's bring them back over here. That's right. Our next big major speaker has been looking for this dream, the E-dream, for a long, long time. She's fighting for her dream to become a reality in this very tough, fast-paced, and indeed conflict-filled working environment. She is a CEO and a campaigner, and she's been absolutely passionate in finding that dream and really changing the workplace with the power of E. This CEO and campaigner founded a business called the Empathy Business, which now is changing the policies and changing the direction of so many corporations. And what she's doing is helping to embed the power of empathy to change workplace culture. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the wonderful Belinda Palmer.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. I don't think I've ever been introduced with balloons, so that's a good start. Who here cares about empathy? Okay, not everyone. Who here, we have some psychopaths in the room. Who here cares about showing empathy when you're at home? Oh, a lot more hands. And who here cares about showing empathy when you're at work? Okay, good. This is good. I want to talk to you this morning about empathy at work and how you can show empathy for your customers and your colleagues. Thank you. Thank you very much. And if you think about it, everyone in this room, we're going to spend the next 50 years of our lives at work. That is more time than we get to spend with our families. Yet the irony is only 1 in 10 of us are actually engaged in our jobs. Work for many, we just spend too much time at work for it not to have deeper meaning. And work for many of us, it's become a transaction. It's become a place that is not allowing people to feel that they belong. It's become a place devoid of empathy. And why should we accept this? I want to put forward another way this morning. I want to show you how more empathic companies make more money. How you can start to manage and measure empathy in your own companies through what I call nudges, empathy nudges, small things that make a really big difference. And I want to give you a model of how you can start to think about empathy. And it's really important that we don't separate out your customers from your colleagues, because how you are internally, it just manifests itself externally with your customers. And my definition of empathy is the emotional impact that a company has on its people. I'm not talking about sympathy. I'm talking about empathy in action. That's my focus. It's not about you feeling things are being done to you. It's about you going out there and empowering your teams to deliver change. And when you walk out of here, I would love you to see your own workplace through the lens of empathy. But first, because it's the morning, I am going to show you some examples where corporate empathy was nowhere, and I mean nowhere to be seen. Okay, this guy, he works for Twitter. He goes in one morning, and the way he finds out he's been made redundant is all of a sudden, he can't log on to his Twitter account. It's kind of like the corporate equivalent of being dumped by text. Hewlett-Packard, when they first introduced their facial recognition software, it didn't recognize black faces because the people testing it were white and Asian and reflective of the Silicon Valley bias. And young ladies, just imagine that you're a young, aspiring career woman. You're searching for images of CEOs, not male CEOs. That's the point. You're searching for CEOs online, and you can do this on Google. You see man after man after man, white man, and then the first woman that you see is CEO Barbie. So yes, apparently, ladies, we need a ridiculous wardrobe and a tiny waist size to smash the glass ceiling. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, so what? These are tiny examples. These are unempathic behavior, but they're inconsequential. But just imagine if you deal with or you work for an unempathic organization, the impact that this can have, the stress that this can affect us, it's really, really significant. Now, I often get asked, what makes an empathic company. Because empathy is, it's kind of one of those vague terms. What does it really mean? What does it look like in a company? And I've looked at the most empathic companies in the world, and I've identified 7 key drivers of what makes a company empathic. It's things like empowerment. When you wake up, when your alarm or when Alexa goes off in the morning, do you feel, when you walk in, do you feel empowered that you can actually make a difference that day? Authenticity. How different is your home to your work, to you at work? And is there a big gap? Because companies are really missing out if you're not taking your full self to work. And belonging. And belonging is at the heart of an empathic organization. It's the feeling that, you know, when you talk, that somebody actually is listening to you. That you feel valued, that you feel part of something. And the problem with the unempathic examples that I shared with you is what they are screaming, whether it's the algorithm, the product design, or the culture of the company, they are screaming that you do not belong here. And it's not just the emotional benefits for a company of being more empathic. So I run an empathy index in the Harvard Business Review, and the top 10 companies in 2015, they outperformed the bottom, the most empathic companies, the top 10, they outperformed the bottom 10 by 50%. It really doesn't matter what way you cut the numbers, by growth, by earnings, by productivity, more empathic companies, they make more money. And I've been working in business for about 20 years, and in my experience, it is not, most business leaders, most CEOs are not psychopaths. I mean, you do get the odd one or two, but actually, you've got empathic people who do unempathic things. It is not about changing the people, it's about changing the system. And what I mean by system, I mean the environment. I mean the corporate politics, the corporate bullshit that goes on. It's about changing the processes, the policies. It's about even changing the style of meetings. I can sit in a meeting and tell you how empathic that company is by the way they operate. So what I'm saying is, it's not that people in business are unempathic, they become that way. And in order to become more empathic, we need to change the system. It is not about sending people on training courses. It's not about having a team hug in the morning. Please don't do that. It is about, and I'm going to give you show you some examples of companies that I've worked in. It's some very simple examples. And the good news about empathy is that it can be learned. So by the age of about 23, our brains are formed and our IQ is pretty fixed. It doesn't really change that much. But our EQ is malleable. And researchers think about 50% of it is genetic and hardwired, but the other 50% of our empathy skills are learned. Now, technology. I want to talk a little bit about technology because for all its promises of democratization, I believe it is fueling the empathy deficit. You know, I love technology. I love technology for all the freedom it gives us, you know, in how we live and how we live our lives. But I have seen a different side to it. And I've seen a different side to it. I've got teenagers, and they're mostly addicted to their screens. But in the workplace, I've seen technology take on a different side as well. How many times do you think the average adult now checks their phone a day? Huh? 180. We have some geeks in the house. 180, wow. Not that much. Anyone else? 75, close. 50, okay. Between 82 and 100 times a day, the average adult now checks their phone. What is the number one communication at work? Email. Email is the most unempathic communication. Have you ever had an argument over email? Yes, it escalates. And the problem with email is it helps us avoid conflict. It stops us practicing our empathy, and it stops us actively listening to other people. And a lot of you will be going through digital transformations. And I think for all of you, there is such an opportunity to tap into the fact that we are emotionally smart. Yesterday, I asked Alexa, I said to Alexa, and I'm British, any other Brits in the house? Yay, 2 or 3. We're still invited. Brexit hasn't happened yet. Next year, there might be less of us. So I asked Alexa, being British, what the weather was like, okay, in Dubai, and because that's obviously what I do. And Alexa tells me what the weather is. It's sunny and it's hot, but she doesn't ask me how I feel. Now, the problem, if you tell Alexa you've broken your leg, she will tell you to ring 999 in my country, okay? But you tell Alexa you've had a really bad day and she doesn't know what to do. If we want to build a culture of empathy, we need to build a culture of emotional literacy across everything, including our technology. And you can't manage something unless you measure it. And I want to talk about measuring empathy because we have a tool that measures empathy. And what it does is it measures how much you talk versus how much you listen, for example. It measures how quickly you might jump to a solution. And it measures how you manage conflict. Now, managing conflict, demonstrating empathy is not about avoiding conflict. And I'll be running a session later today, which is about managing empathy in conflict. Because actually, that's when you need your empathy skills the most. So we're going to give you some really practical tools on how to do that. And you also need to, if you're really going to do this, you need to manage empathy at a company level. Now, I work with lots of organizations, huge organizations, and they'll tell me that all their people are happy, they're measuring employment engagement, NPS, customer sat, all these metrics, and they're using surveys from 50 years ago. They're asking the same old questions in the same old way. I want to give you some more effective ways to measure empathy. Things like blind copy on email, BCC. We measure the number of blind copies per email per employee because if you have a high number of blind copies per employee, you have a culture of disempowerment and a lack of transparency. We measure the amount of time senior people versus junior people speak in meetings. You don't want your senior people talking all the time because then that you create a culture of deference, which is counter to a culture of innovation. And another measure we look at is what percentage of your time do you spend on corporate politics? Because if you're spending your time on corporate politics, you are pursuing your own agenda and not growing the company. And it's these things, these new measures that will give you a much better indication of how empathic your company is. Right, but where do you start? I'm going to show you some examples. How do you start to sustain empathy? How do you even institutionalize empathy? You might think that's a bit weird, but actually, we're not going to leave this room and suddenly become more empathic. It's not magically going to happen. We need to start putting things in place to create a culture where empathy can thrive. So what works? The power of the nudge, taken from behavioral science. I love nudges. Satya Nadella, when he came into Microsoft, he said, right, 2 key things, empathy and empowerment. But the change didn't come from him. It came from the grassroots. And the first thing we need to do is really, or the first thing I do when I work with a company is set up a series of empathy ambassadors across the organization who are going to deliver the change. Now, an example of an empathy nudge. At my son's school, they wanted to get more boys into the choir, but choir was very much seen as for girls. They set up a boy band, okay? They called it boy band. Empathy and language, they were oversubscribed by boys. So those are the sorts of things. I want to quickly give you some examples. We're working for one of the biggest banks in Europe, and the organization, particularly the people in the branch, felt that they put process over people. And it was really causing a lot of frustrations in the branch. So what we did is we allowed them to break the process, and we asked one simple question, which fundamentally changed how the branch staff operated and customer service. What would you do if it was a member of your family? Would you give the same outcome? Head office. Again, head office, it implies superiority. If I go and see my son's headmaster, it means he's at the top, okay? This is about saying, actually, what is the role of head office? It is there to support the front line. So we renamed it the support hub. Even front line. Front line is a military term. It means first line defense. Who's the enemy? The customer. This is an example of empathy. I'm going to have to hurry up now because my timer is flashing. But one of our banks in the UK, they just kept saying sorry. I don't think you can really see it, but they just kept saying, we're really sorry you feel this way. Empathy is not about saying sorry. It's about taking action, acknowledging what's happening, and working with someone to find a solution. This was something we did in a media company where we put a wall of gratitude. We have all these millennials, the next generation. So what we did was we got them to encourage gratitude amongst each other. And this wall of gratitude, they keep filling up and just saying thank you. It's making a really big difference to the culture. Another thing, try and move away from email. 50% of your communication should not be on email. So this was something we did. This is using Facebook Workplace, but a much more interactive thing where that conflict doesn't escalate. Difficult conversations. We're going to talk about conflict this afternoon at 3:45, I think. This was like the most simple nudge was in meetings. A lot of people have their phone out, they have computers. It's really unempathic to those people in the room. So what we did, and it's so simple, is everybody, this was for a service business, if you put a pink post-it note on your phone or your laptop, it indicates to everyone in the room that you're waiting for an important call. You're not just being rude. This was for meetings. We developed meeting cards, this was for the BBC, this one where the CEO used to have a cut the crap card. Another one, what's the elephant in the room? But encouraging meetings. Meetings, if you change your meeting culture, it's the fastest route to changing the company culture. This was something we did for a insurance company where what they didn't realize was actually all the men were signing the checks. Quite obvious, but and this is something we did for a school where just before girls are about to start a coding lesson, technology is still gendered, and it can be very apprehensive for a young girl. So we put quotes of inspirational women on the screens. And the last example is we did for a car company where we changed the environment. And you can't really see that, but we did 10 empathy nudges where we changed the environment of how you buy cars, because actually the sales process can be very unempathic. And that increased sales by 23%. So for all companies spend on these huge transformational programs, these nudges are going to have a far more powerful effect. Let's not make this a dream. Let's make empathy at work a reality. Let us create experiences where technology enhances our humanity, where we actually start to manage and measure empathy, and we focus on these really small things, because they make a difference to how we feel and whether we feel like we belong. I mean, if we have 50 years at work, let's make it count. I believe empathy has the power to transform our working lives. And every day I wake up, listen to the news, and I think, never have we needed more empathy than we need it now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Belinda Palmer, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. Wonderful to see you. And I know that we're all looking forward to hearing you speak at 3:45 today. So thank you so very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust that we have whet your appetite. Yes? Whet your appetite with what is about to come over the next 3 days here at the ICCA Congress. What we want you to do is we want this morning wake-up call to really be a reminder to dream big. This be a reminder to energize and activate your dreams, because we have crafted the ICCA Congress to really inspire you to follow those dreams. And we also want you to do one other thing. We want you to mark this date, mark today's date, the 12th of November 2018, as the day that you pressed the go button on those bold, audacious, courageous dreams. ICCA delegates, you are officially woken this Monday morning. Have a great day.